if we look at the world in the last couple of years, there has been multiple changes that we are experiencing. Much earlier, the world was centered around two powers, but now the number of powers are growing. It has becoming more and more fragmented. Earlier, there were policies that were unifying the world, but now there are policies where every country is thinking about how they can benefit. And therefore, we see a multipolar world emerging, and which is being more fragmented. There are multiple organizations that are coming up, multiple countries forming their own organizations, and they participate in more than one such conversations. So for organizations as leaders, how do we operate in such a multipolar world is something that is a challenge for all of us today. So I'd like to probably start this conversation with what kind of aspects you have seen changing in the last couple of years because of this phenomena, in which the investment strategies have started changing, or the organizations have started working in a very different way to manage the volatility and the uncertainty that is coming because of multipolarity. We don't have an order of speaking, so anybody can start and then we can follow through, as we were told that it has to be a very natural conversation like friends, and we will follow that.
We can shift it straight away. Okay. So we've seen change in the past few years in terms of how people behave from an investment perspective. And what we do is helping people buy and sell companies and any activity. So in that we see that. So if I look back 10 years ago, people would be acquiring companies when they looked at investment opportunities for strategically, mainly focus on returns and for growth. Now, one of the things that's coming in is security. So if you take food, for example, food security is a primary driver. So it's not necessarily return investment, it's a long-term security and being part of the security of that for the country. So Saudi Arabia is trying to look for it for those companies. They're merging, creating as much as possible, keeping their assets strong so nobody can take that asset away. UAE is doing the same. And the private sector wants to be seen to be contributing to that food security program. So that drives the decision-making process. At the end of the day, bottom line is important, return on investment is important, but they will give up that in the context if they're getting, being able to demonstrate if they are the government, then of course they are going to anyway do it themselves. In the private sector, if they can go and demonstrate to the government, look, I'm doing this transaction and it's going to be at the cost of some premium, I need support, they will get that. But they're participating in the food security of the country. And that's driven by what's happening in the world. Increasingly, we see that into other areas also, some of the global changes in this exactly, because each country and the taxes is a driver, the one which drives thinking throughout in terms of everybody wants to ensure the structure is such that the company is winning and their country brings the tax into their country. These are driving decision definitely for investment purposes, and we see that across the board in every industry.
Yeah, so I'd just like to enhance on what he said, right? The way I look at it is now multipolar is not only from the global perspective, but also from the regional perspective. If you see, I mean, a few years back, GCC was a very, very strong body. All the 6 countries in the GCC used to speak the same language, the same things. But now if you see, each one have their own interest. Saudi came up with the regulations that it has to be regional HO of all the companies, otherwise the companies cannot operate in Saudi Arabia. So where is the GCC gone as a team, right? It's gone out of the window. So every country is now looking for their own interest, which is not bad. But at some point in time, you need to also look at whom are you sitting together, whom you are teaming up with. So I believe it's a difficult time, it's a challenging time. But you have, as a company, as a corporate, you have to be agile, you have to be ready with what's coming and not commit long term. Keep your investments, but keep also some amount of investments as agile as you can move depending on how the circumstances change. So be aware of the geopolitical situations. That is extremely important in my view.
Excellent, excellent. I think taking care of food security, regional multipolarity, I think that's also very, very good points. Yes.
I think on the themes of what you just said, Another factor we are seeing is the kind of skill sets that the team or the company and the folks in the company need is, of course, agility and also being adaptable, because there is so many changes happening, and being comfortable with an environment of change, constant change, and also a resilience, right? So, which one way, since also there is a education element here, that resilience aspect is something which, in the younger generation nowadays, you see both sides. So I think, so from a company perspective, and in terms of preparing internally, I believe, there's a lot of work required to be ready for this environment.
Thank you. Yes.
I just wanted to take it back to companies for a minute and just say that a lot of countries and companies within those countries used to focus on the biggest companies are the ones that everybody used to focus on working in let's say Tata, or working in, let's say, Infosys, and everybody would be focused on these kind of companies. And in Japan, it was, if you didn't work for a big multinational company, you were not viewed as successful, and even in your families, they would not want you to work in those kind of small companies unless you were working for the brand name. But I think as you had just mentioned, with all the changes that are happening so much with AI and all these new technologies that are coming out, some of the smaller startup companies are the ones that are going to be the most impactful, because they can move so quickly. I think you'll see a big change in how we all view these kinds of companies and these kind of economies, because the ones that can invest money in the smallest companies as opposed to big companies, they may be the ones that succeed the fastest. So I think we'll see a change in investment strategy towards some of these very small companies. And I know that we just saw some recent acquisitions of companies that were less than 5 years old in cybersecurity, for example, that were sold for like $32 billion. And they were very, very young companies when you look at them. They were not the traditional companies. And I think you see, I'm not picking you out, but Jibu, you look at banks, some of the banking sectors, and you look at some of the online banks and how the investments have come. Now we have, WEO in Abu Dhabi. Where was it 10 years ago? Not existing. And so they're taking over some of the market from some of the incumbent companies.
Yeah, I believe that, first of all, thank you, Rahul, for having us, putting all the beautiful minds together in one room, and a great conversation. Multipolar world that we live in, it is something that has to be, addressed and spoken about, and what better platform than this. So, I would
better location.
And better location, and touch.
Yes.
So no, I would like to pick from what Robin and Ajay were saying, that change is constant, and this constant change, I think, has always been happening. But I think post-COVID, not only last 2 years, but I think the multipolarization started a little bit earlier. Different dynamics, different situations. Now we're talking about politics in the last 2-3 years, and how countries are behaving, how leaderships of certain countries are behaving, but also the change of the whole system started from the COVID. Now here is the positive part. Hospitality, what I'm representing here, has positively benefited. We have a pent-up demand post-COVID. People are spending less on hardware like bags and watches. But if they have a slightest of opportunity to go for a staycation or go for a holiday, they would spend, right? And this is really benefiting the hospitality industry and the travel trade industry, the tourism industry. So we have seen a pent-up demand. We have seen customers paying more rates. We have seen luxury brands coming up. Dubai is full of branded residences today, and these are all evolution in this multipolar world. Hospitality and real estate and travel and tourism is really on an upward trend. If you remember how much we were paying 5-6 years back for an air ticket, I booked my tickets to London to go for the World Travel Market half an hour back, and I was shocked. I was like, really? Are we really going to pay that much for a ticket? It has gone 3-4x perhaps, for what it was in 2019. And all these things have to be considered. But then, hey, somebody is benefiting. Tourism is benefiting. We hope that there are no challenges in this world, and we kind of control all these things, and we can all work together. All the economies, all the countries can work together. But hospitality at the moment is really seeing a good graph towards the north.
That's a good perspective. Thank you.
Maybe if I can just pick on, because we made a few references to investments, right? I think in this world of uncertainty, as you said, I think, yes, uncertainty has been the constant sort of factor in all of our lives. I think that's always been there. But I think there's always an opportunity hunting within that uncertainty. And I think that's what everybody is looking for. Partly to the security element of food security that you mentioned, I think this multipolar sort of disconnect or the opportunity that kicks in is partly related to each one securing their own interests, right? So if you look, the UAE has sort of been a front runner in that for several years. I think the vision of the ruling family, etc., has been quite, ahead of a lot of thought processes. If you look, they came up with the D33, that's the Dubai 33 objective sometime in 2023, looking at how you make Dubai sort of the sought after place to live, work, and do business in. And I think there are quite a lot of shifts that are happening in that front. And I can talk on the financial services side, where you see the regulatory framework, for example, the opportunity of crypto. I think no other jurisdiction has had the sort of appetite to bring in crypto and look at that as an opportunity to develop this place as a hub. I was at a conference a couple of weeks back where they said for crypto regulations, Dubai is sort of front running the rest of the world. You have, I think, 2 or 3 regulators already in that space. So we are probably, the VARA is there, the DFSA is coming up with rules, the ADGM is coming up with the regulatory framework. So I think we are really nicely placed from a regional perspective to capture that opportunity. And I think that will continue. To Ajay's point on resilience in people coming into the workforce, I think it's extremely crucial for people to understand not just about making money, right? I think there's a lot of governance that people need to understand. It's the way you do things to achieve your goal. A lot of people that we see coming into the workforce have a common mindset of how much can I make in the shortest span of time, where I think that's a completely wrong, from my perspective, coming from a governance background. Doing things the right way is more sustainable than the short, sort of gain that you have. So just a few thoughts around that from my side.